Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben Lunsford and I'm with Epique Realty, and we've been going through how to buy a home. And we've talked about your pre-approval. We've talked about finding a great agent. We've talked about home shopping, and now it's time to put in that offer. And so when you think about putting an offer in, there's a lot of things that go into your offer. And how in the world do you make an offer? Because you don't want to overpay, but you also don't want the seller to say no because you want this house, right? What do you do? Well, first off, when we think about an offer, or I should say, this is where having the right agent comes into play. This is where having the right agent makes a difference. I'm going to share this the way that I approach it and what I think are some best practices. They certainly aren't the end-all, be-all to everything, but it's some things that I've found in my career that can be helpful. So first off, we have price, right? Obviously, we have price. And what price are you going to offer? Now, one of the things that I've heard many, many times in my career, especially as we've had the big run-up recently, at the time of this video, I should say, the big run-up from 2020 through 2022. But a lot of areas, again, where I lived previously in the greater Seattle area, it was like this for years. The market was just moving up. And so many times people say, that house isn't worth, fill in the blank. That house isn't worth $300,000. That house isn't worth $600,000. That house isn't worth $800,000, right? And so basically, people they'll comment on someone's, when they share their home for sale on Facebook, or they'll comment like, oh, good luck getting that price, right? And sometimes homes are overpriced, but oftentimes the homes sell. And so let's talk about who sets the price, okay? And I'll give you a hint, it's not the sellers, okay? Believe it or not, it's buyers who set the price, okay? So you can have, or I should say, let's use the garage sale analogy that I've used before. You can go to a garage sale and they got a bunch of stuff there, but nothing gets sold because the seller's asking way too much for the stuff they're selling, right? Well, it's the same way with homes. If you've got 200 homes for sale and you've got 200 buyers and 100 homes for sale, well, whether or not those 100 homes sell is relative to what the buyers think of the price. Because you might only sell 50 of those 100 homes because the buyers are like, no, I'm not paying that. And so in that sense, buyers are setting the price. Now, in the same token, or the same coin, but the other side is that you could have those same 200 buyers, but 150 homes. Well, they're competing over these homes and they all raise the prices because they're bidding them up, and 50 people are left without a home. And so, I've experienced that a lot, but especially 2020 through 2022, right? There's a lot of these bidding wars and more parts of the country, but I experienced escalation clauses and bidding wars, so to speak, from like 2013 all the way till about 2022. And so, that is a common thing that happens, and that's why buyers are the ones that set the price. So when a buyer notices that the last 10 homes they've been watching have sold and what their prices were, that then gives them some insight and makes them think, on the next home, I'm going to go ahead and offer their list price because of what these sold for, or that I'm going to offer more than what they're asking because I want to make sure I get the home because of what these other homes sold for. Or they might want to offer low. There's all kinds of things, but they're looking at these factors. So on the flip side of this, what we saw in 2008 through 2012 is that there were 200 homes on the market and only 100 buyers. And so it was really a race to the bottom. If a buyer didn't buy this house for $150,000, well, they had another 5 houses they could choose from that were 150 or 145 or 140. So in that sense, it was a race for home sellers to get their price lower so a buyer would take theirs and they could be done and get their home sold. So if no buyer thinks a home is worth what the seller is asking for it, it'll sit on the market. And I've seen that happen. I've seen houses, good houses, meaning you could move into them. I've seen them sit for a year because they were overpriced, right? So that being said, you are not the only buyer, right? Your opinion matters, but you're one of thousands of buyers in the area, right? A singular buyer does not set the market. It's all buyers collectively setting the market. So just because you're not in a hurry, or you think that you are in fact going to find your dream home and you're going to wait until you find that dream home and at the perfect price, other buyers are going to be snatching those other houses up and prices are going to keep going up because they're going to keep buying them up, right? And so the market may just pass you by. You cannot try to ascertain the psychology of another buyer. So you have to take all these things kind of, together to make the best decision you can. So when it comes up to pricing, what a good agent will do is look at the comparable home sales, their time on the market for the property, and take into consideration your plans and what you're trying to do and your finances, and they'll suggest a price and terms to be able to purchase the home. Maybe it's below the list price, maybe it's above list price, maybe it's at list price, maybe above list price but getting closing costs. There's a variety of things, and it's not necessarily good professionalism to always offer low. On a home, you don't necessarily always offer low. It's so many factors at play in terms of what you're going to offer. Now, an on-market property is typically a retail property, okay? Meaning it's like walking into Best Buy or walking into Target or another department store, and they have things for sale, and it's retail pricing, right? Sometimes there's a sale on certain things, but otherwise the price is the price, right? That's an on-market property. You aren't typically looking for a deal with on-market properties. What you're looking for is a property that fits what you're looking for and a good market value, a fair market value, right? If you're looking for a deal, typically you're looking for something that needs work and is off-market, just because of where pricing is and the number of buyers out there. And now if we were in a steep buyer's market, excuse me, like we were in 2008, 9, 10, you could have deals if you understood what was happening with the market. But even then, people weren't wanting to buy because, the market's dropping. Well, that drop was only for 4 years, and it only took a few years to recover off of that. So what you want to communicate then with your agent is make sure that they understand. Are you looking for a deal? Are you looking for something off market that you can get low and find a distressed seller where you can get a good deal? Or are you looking for a good home that you can get into, right? With your price and budget in mind, right? Now, in your offer, if you're getting a loan, okay, you're going to have a financing contingency, and you're likely going to have an appraisal contingency in there as well. The appraisal contingency ensures that you're getting a fair market value. This is a neutral third party who's looking at their own comparable sales to make sure that you have a fair market value price for your home. Now, what is a contingency? When you write up a sale contract, you're saying, I will buy this house. The contingency is there to allow you to not buy the home. It says, I will buy this house unless one of these things happens. So usually you've got, unless the appraisal comes in low, unless the inspection is bad, and I don't approve of that, right? Things like that. I've seen some that have a neighborhood review. It's possible to say, well, I want time to review the neighborhood because I'm moving in the area or something like that, right? But you may have a septic contingency, get the septic system inspected, or a well or something like that. Your state is going to have specific forms and types of contingencies that are standard or normal. And this does vary from state to state. So be sure to talk with your agent about what contingencies you have available to you. Now, with these normal contingencies, I want to contrast those with the home sale contingency. When a seller says no contingent offers, what they mean usually is they don't want a sale of their home contingent on the sale of your home. And so that's, when you're trying to sell yours and trying to buy, that's usually what they mean. Now, sometimes they literally mean they don't want no inspection, do your inspection before you make an offer, etc. But that's pretty rare. So usually if they don't want contingent, they just mean not contingent on the sale of your home. And so as we get moving into thinking more about the offer, and the next thing that you really ought to be aware of is earnest money. earnest money is your deposit. Earnest money is, you need to consider it to be non-refundable. Okay. Now, it is refundable based on your contingencies, but it's your deposit. You're saying, I am going to buy this home, right? But if you don't approve of the inspection, there's something major that you weren't aware of, roof needs to be replaced or something, and seller won't work with you, you can back out and get your earnest money back, typically, okay? Again, this is something that you really need to be aware of and read the contract and talk with your agent and make sure that you understand all those things. And perhaps consult an attorney if you feel like you need to. Again, every state's a little bit different here. Now, there's typically a lot of standard language in the contract that's going to have explain terms and explain some ins and outs of what's happening or define things. And those, again, vary state to state. So I'm not going to go into great detail about all of those kinds of things. What was pretty common in, I'll say, Western Washington, we had anywhere from a 10 to 15, sometimes as much as 18-page contract. And here in Tennessee, it's actually a smaller contract, typically. And so every state is going to be different based on what they require. And so, but with your earnest money, something also to be aware of is that's part of your overall down payment. So if you are putting down $20,000 and you put down $2,000 in earnest money, you now owe $18,000. Okay, so that's where it is. It's not in addition to your down payment, it's part of that. Now, after you've made your offer, the seller may counter your offer. Any change is considered a counter. So they could change your closing date. They could change who they want to close with. They could change how much earnest money they want. Anything like that, it's considered a counter offer. And so there could be all kinds of changes that they may want to make. Maybe they don't want to make any changes. But if they make any changes, it's a counter offer and they send it back to you. And then you get to look it over again, decide if you want to agree, and then, sign up, move on. Ultimately, what you need to understand here, though, is it needs to be a win-win. Like, the seller's not going to move forward if they don't feel like they're winning a bit. And you're not going to move forward if you don't feel like you're winning a bit. And so that's where you're trying to come together to an agreement. That's the big thing here that I want you to remember. Neither the buyer nor the seller want to get raked over the coals, but sometimes you just can't get what you want, right? So sometimes you just got to walk away because it's not going to be a win for you. Sometimes the seller's going to walk away because it's not going to be a win for them. And that's the process of contracts and negotiation sometimes. But ultimately, both the buyer and seller want the same thing. They want the home to sell. The buyer wants it to be sold to them, right? The seller wants to get certain terms. So there's going to be some give and take in this contract. Just like in your home search, how you have to sacrifice something typically, in the contract, you're negotiating, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. Maybe a 5-day inspection instead of 10 days. Maybe $3,000 earnest money instead of $1,500 earnest money. Maybe a 45-day close instead of a 30-day close. There's all kinds of things that you may just need to give in a little bit to make sure that it all comes together. Once all terms have been agreed upon, then you have what we call mutual acceptance or a bound contract. And you are officially pending, right? The property's pending. They can't accept any more offers. And so they can accept them as a backup offer, but that only comes into play if you back out. But ultimately, that's the general process there. And now it's time for the closing process. And so we'll talk more about the closing process, and I'll talk with explain a little bit more about the kind of lending and what's going on behind the scenes and that kind of thing in the next video. But that's the basic gist for a contract. You're talking about your price. You've got earnest money, and you've got a few other things that some check boxes and things that you'll have in there. And then there's a lot of explanatory, some legalese and some different things that are in a contract. And that varies from state to state. So I really can't go over all that sort of stuff right here, right now. But make sure your agent does when you're ready to sign a contract. Make sure you go over it all so that you understand all that. But ultimately, as long as you can work with the seller and make it a win-win for both of you, you're now under contract and you're ready to move forward with the closing process. You're that much closer to being a homeowner. And so I want to encourage you to keep pushing forward and keep taking these steps to buy a home. And I hope that this information, again, has empowered you and encourages you to continue to move forward in building your net worth through real estate. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next video. All right, today I am showcasing Schultzbrow Brewery and Schultz's Schnitzel Kitchen. I almost said it like my son used to say it, Snitchel. But anyways, just want to highlight that. This is some real authentic German food. Having been to Germany a couple times, I can tell you it's probably some of the most authentic stuff that I've actually had at a German restaurant in America. I haven't been to a bunch of German restaurants, but it's good stuff here. So if you're looking for that kind of a place here in the Knoxville area, it's great. They got a big old beer garden, and I definitely recommend coming to check it out.